The next topic I want to cover is Ionic events. Events are useful when we need to listen for something globally and react to it. It's also a way to communicate between screens. Although, for regular screen navigation, you should definitely be using normal navigation parameters. Let's see how we can incorporate this in our app. Here I have the My Team screen, and we saw that when we follow and unfollow teams, they'll automatically show up here. I also want to add whatever teams we have designated as our favorite teams that we're following to also be shown on the side menu navigation. And when we follow and unfollow teams, we want that navigation to be automatically updated appropriately. Let's first go implement this baseline functionality. Here I am on the app.ts, and we're going to add a property for favorite teams. And this is just going to be a regular array. The next thing I want to do is make sure that the user settings is injected into the constructor. Then I'm going to add a method called refresh favorites. And in it, we're simply going to say this.favorites equals user settings get all favorites. And when the app first starts up, we want to invoke this method. Now let's flip over to the HTML, and we want to add to the side menu a second section of the side menu just for favorites where we iterate over the favorite teams that we just added. Another thing you're going to see is that for each favorite team, we're calling a method called goToTeam. So let's make sure we have that implemented. goToTeam is using the Elite API to get the tournament, the loading controller. Let's make sure we're injecting these things appropriately. Let's also add the team homepage to the imports here. And now we have no more errors in our goToTeam method. Let's run the app to see where we are so far. So when the page first loads, we see the two HC Elite teams. They're also reflected here in the side menu. Let's click on this one, HC Elite 7th. All of that works. I'm going to unfavorite the team. Yes, I'm going to unfollow them. Now watch what happens here. When I go back to the home screen, the HC Elite 7th is correctly removed from the My Teams because we refresh it every time we call the IonViewLoaded method. But if we look in the side menu, it's still there. So we need to use an event to listen for an event of when a team is followed or unfollowed so we can update this menu appropriately. So when dealing with events, there's two sides of it. We want to publish the event and subscribe to the event. What we're going to do is in our user settings here, we're going to publish the event. Specifically, anytime a team favorites or unfavorites a team, we'll publish that that particular event occurred. To do this, the first thing we need to do is add the events object to the list of Ionic imports here. And then we want to make sure that we inject it into the constructor. Then in the favorite team and unfavorite team methods, all we need to do is say this.events.publish, and we're just going to use a string for a named event here. So we'll say favorites changed. And you can make this whatever convention you want. It's even possible to pass parameters into event publications, though I don't need to do that here. I'm just saying, hey, this event called favorites changed is firing. Now let's go back to the app.ts. Let's make sure we're adding the events to the Ionic imports. And let's make sure we're injecting it into the constructor. And then when the app first starts up, this is where we're going to subscribe to the method. We'll say this.events.subscribe. Which event are we subscribing to? Favorites changed. And when we subscribe, we're going to set up a handler that will be invoked when it happens. This.refresh favorites. And that should be it. That should be all we need. Let's go try it out now. Here we are back in our app. We can see we just have the one HC Elite team that's the favorite. That's reflected on the side menu navigation as well as the My Teams page here. Let's go find the team in the March Madness. We'll do that same team, the 7th grade HC Elite. I'm going to add them as a favorite. Now let's go back to the home screen. We can see they're added here. And now we can see the event has fired, so they've been added here as well. Let's prove that to ourselves that it works both ways. We're going to unfollow this team. Yes, we want to unfollow. When we go back to the home screen, we can see it's been removed from the home screen. And as well, it's being removed now from the side menu navigation. Events are not necessarily needed on an everyday basis, but for situations like this where you need to communicate across pages of your app globally, they are often exactly the tool you need.